Welcome, guys. This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm Owen James, and this is all your latest Rangers news, guys. Welcome to the channel. Just a reminder, we've gone through now 7,700 subscribers. At time of recording, we're on 7,701. Obviously, please help keep the channel building as we build towards 8K, hopefully by the start of the season, and then 10K by the end of the season. Right, look, we're going to talk transfer news. We're going to talk Hamza. Igaman and what's going on with that one, and we're going to talk obviously about what needs to be done, because the situation is this for me. We can't go, I think, through the rest of this pre-season with all this speculation regarding Hamza and regarding to some extent as well Cyril Dessers. I think something needs to be resolved sooner rather than later. We need to basically, I think, sit down and say, look, at the end of the day, something needs to happen with this. It either is that we sell him or we don't sell him. The longer uncertainty comes around players, the longer you have these conversations and these rumours and counter rumours. And I know a lot of it is media speculation. I understand that. I get that. The media, love writing Rangers stuff because they know Rangers fans will click on it. They know Rangers fans will speak about it. It gets their advertisers and makes their advertisers happy. That's the whole reason for doing it. Now, in terms of Hamza, Russell Martin, when he was interviewed the other day, talked about the fact that as far as he was aware, there'd been no bids coming in for Hamza. It's now being reported in multiple media sources this morning that Rangers have rejected a £13 million bid for Hamza by Lille. So that's 13 million. Now, Rangers apparently, again, like the Cyril Dessers situation, are playing hardball and are insisting that if Lille are so determined to get Hamza, they need to pay £15 million for the player. Now, some people may say this is undervaluing him. Some people have talked about him being worth 20-25 million. I mean, I don't think at this stage you're going to get 20 to 25 million pounds for Hamza. I think 15 million is far more realistic. Even 15 million would represent a huge profit on the player. The actual transfer fee we paid for Hamza was 1.7 million. So it would represent a nearly £13.3 million profit. Now, yes, some of that does end up, I think, going to Rabat. I don't know what the sell-on clause is. It is not 30%, as has been reported by some media outlets and some podcasts. It's not 30%. It's a lot lower than that. But this is part of modern football. Clubs, unfortunately not us, have become much more aware to inserting sell-on clauses into contracts. I think that is something Rangers will begin to do now with players. I think, if we do sell Hamza to Lille for 15 million, then we do need to insist in a 15 to 20% sell-on clause being put into that contract, because I really seriously think that this is not the end of the moves for Hamza. That if he goes to France and is successful, which I'm sure he will be, obviously succeeds in the Champions League with Lille, who will play league phase Champions League football, he's going to be worth 25, 30 million, 35 million in the future, and then we're looking at a big substantial cash income to Rangers once Lille do choose to sell him to an English Premier League club, a top Spanish club, or a top German, or even Paris Saint-Germain, for example, in France. So that is where we're up to. So, it's good that Rangers are playing hardball. Don't get me wrong. Now, there is also reports that Rangers are anxious to hang on to Hamza until after the initial Champions League qualifier against Panathinaikos next week. I think the worry within the club is that, we haven't obviously moved for any strikers. At this point, there continues to be the links to Dor Turgeman. I'm not going to particularly talk about Dor here because I spoke about that on the video this morning. If you didn't obviously see that, then obviously go and check out the video this morning that came out this morning. It's the one with the picture of Dor, John Suter, and JD Gassama on. I think there's a concern that at this moment in time, technically, we have only one fully fit, match fit, well, not even match fit, but at least close to match fit striker in Danilo. Hamza and Dessers are weeks behind the rest of the squad in terms of their preparation, in terms of their fitness. Obviously, Hamza was delayed entering the country due to a work permit issue, not because he was off negotiating deals with other clubs, as was mischievously reported by some. And Cyril Dessers obviously was injured. Had an ankle injury of some description after international duty. So, both of those players are back in training now. Now, according to, again, some reports, is that Rangers are anxious to hang on to Hamza until at least the Champions League qualifiers are out of the way because of the lack of strikers at the club. If Danilo was to break down or Danilo was to not obviously play well in that first leg, then they need options. And, if we haven't got to Hamza, if we've sold him, then realistically there is no other option. You're going to go into perhaps that second leg with no fit striker. which is not what you want to be doing, especially when the Champions League is considered so vitally important. Now, I know what you're saying, go and sign a striker, but I think the arrival of Turgeman is kind of based on one of those two, whether that be Cyril Dessers or, hopefully, please God, or Hamza departing the club. I think, it will be a case of they will move and spend the 5-6 million on Turgeman if one of those two leaves. I think the club are very determined to not have too many strikers on the books. The squad is already bloated anyway and does need players moving on. The Ben Davises of this world, the Robin Proppers of this world. And obviously, we've seen with Robin Propper being a greedy little bastard that, those contracts have obviously been held up with his move to Twente. I think when that comes to that, I do think the club should play hardball and just say, basically, Robin, you've got two choices. Either you fuck off now or you rot in the reserves for 2 years, and then at 33, 34, no one's going to want you anyway and your career's done. So take a choice, mate. Take a choice. Look, at the end of the day, people said, I've got to respond to one comment that was actually made. Someone said, do you not know what contracts are? Yes, I do know what contracts are. I've got a contract with my place of work. But if I moved on to a new job, I wouldn't expect my workplace to pay me compensation for moving on to a new job. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And those of you who are saying that Propper's in the right to be asking for compensation, give your heads a wobble. Give your heads a wobble. Seriously. But back on the Hamza situation, I think, look, preferably I would love Hamza to stay. I love Hamza. I think he's a fantastic footballer. I think, in Hamza, if Hamza was to stay for another year, say, and actually be played in his rightful position and not stuck out on the left wing as Barry Bassett did with him, I think, and Philippe Clement did to some extent as well, I think, you would see a vastly improved player. I think you've got a player there that would score more than 18 goals in the SPL. You think you'll get a player that would score probably at least 25 to 30 goals, maybe even more than 30 in a season. His all-round play is probably of all the strikers we've got, the three that we do have, Hamza's all-round play is probably the best of all three. His hold-up play is better. His ability to work the back four is better. His speed is better. His skill level is better. His technicalities are a lot better than all the other strikers at this football club. And that's unarguable, guys. People say, oh, well, Dessers is better than Hamza. No, he isn't. Because at the end of the day, why would it be the EPL clubs and top European clubs who in Champions League are coming in for Hamza and bidding 8-figure sums, yet no EPL club, no top European club is in for Cyril Dessers? And you can't pretend that AEK Athens are a top European club, because they're not. Lille, are a club that plays regularly in the Champions League. So I think you've got to deal with realities here. Hamza is a better player. Hamza's shot conversion rate, is good in pressure situations. The Celtic game, the Tottenham game, for example, just to give you two examples there. Technically better, faster, stronger, and actually understands the offside rule, which is obviously a massive bonus. Russell Martin has been quite clear that he wants to keep Hamza Iggerman, and he's right. Of course we want to keep Hamza Iggerman, but unfortunately, the financial world that we currently live in doesn't allow us those luxuries of being able to keep players like Hamza and Raskan if big substantial bids come in for them. It seems to have gone very quiet on the Nicholas Raskan front, which I'm very grateful for. But, Hamza, it seems to be reigniting again over this deal, and Rangers are holding out for that 15 million, which is around 17 million euro. Look, if that bid comes in, I think we will obviously allow him to leave. That 15 million is money that can be reinvested in the squad. You're probably looking at least two players there that can come in and strengthen the squad. Dor Turgeman being one of them, hopefully. So it's all a kind of wait and see kind of situation with Hamza at the moment. But it does appear that kind of story and that narrative around him leaving is starting to come back up again, and it is starting to rear its head again after it went quiet for a little bit. But like I said, Rangers seem to be anxious to keep him until after the Champions League qualifiers at very least. Guys, look, I'd love to know your thoughts on this story. Let me know your comments let me know your thoughts in your comments down below. Thanks for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. If you've enjoyed it, please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.